So this is how it begins, not with a whistle, not with a scoreboard buzzer, but with a question that detonates across the league like a shockwave. ESPN just lit the match, and Stephanie White may be standing on the edge of a media wildfire. After weeks of strange silences, confusing press conferences, and Caitlin Clark mysteriously benched game after game, ESPN pulled back the curtain, and what they revealed wasn't just a sports story. It was a reckoning. Stephanie White, once seen as a stabilizing force in Indiana, is now under the kind of scrutiny no coach wants. National headlines, suspicious fans, and a burning question that refuses to die. What really is going on with Caitlin Clark? It all started with a live TV moment that seemed innocuous until it wasn't. Stephanie White stumbled through a supposedly routine injury update, but instead of clarity, she delivered confusion, hesitation, and red flags. The words didn't align with the body language. And in the world of professional sports, perception is everything. One misstep on camera can unravel an entire narrative, and that's exactly what happened. White's vague tone triggered a chain reaction of doubt, speculation, and outrage that ESPN wasted no time amplifying. It was the crack in the dam. Instead of dousing the flames, the Fever's next move only poured gasoline on the fire. Clark was officially ruled out. Again, this time, the excuse was a right groin injury, and she was labeled day-to-day. But the fans weren't buying it. Not after seeing her dominate the court weeks ago. Not after hearing no additional damage was found. That day-to-day label? It started to sound a lot like whenever we decide we're ready to deal with the backlash. And ESPN, smelling something rotten, pulled no punches in exposing the inconsistency for what it truly looked like: damage control. The bombshell wasn't just the injury update. It was the timing, the wording, the tone. ESPN's Holly Rowe noted Clark saw a specialist who confirmed no new issues. Yet somehow, her return was delayed for weeks. Suddenly, this wasn't about healing, it was about hiding. And when you have the league's biggest stars sidelined with no transparent plan, the whispers get louder. The public wasn't hearing from Clark. They weren't hearing the truth. They were hearing excuses. And one question began to dominate the headlines. Who's really making the call here? Then came the twist nobody saw coming. A viral video clip that sent shockwaves through the fan base. Caitlin Clark, the same Caitlin Clark who was supposedly nursing a groin injury, was caught kicking a soccer ball, not limping, not rehabbing, kicking with power, with form, with the same leg that was supposedly too fragile to sprint or shoot. If the injury was real, why was she moving like a healthy athlete? And if it wasn't, then the rabbit hole just got deeper. Suddenly, the entire day-to-day narrative imploded. The optics were disastrous. The internet erupted. The clip wasn't from weeks ago, it was current. While Clark was missing her 13th game of the season, there she was, looking anything but hobbled. Fans flooded comment sections with outrage and confusion. If she can kick, she can hoop, one user wrote. Are we being lied to? Asked another. Even ESPN analysts couldn't ignore it. The narrative that Clark was too hurt to play crumbled in real time, replaced by a far more sinister one. Clark isn't sitting because of injury. She's being kept from the court. That's when the speculation evolved into something far more serious. Experts began asking whether Caitlin was being silenced, not protected. Was this about her health, or was it about controlling the narrative? Because when a franchise has internal problems, they often look for a shield. And Caitlin Clark, with her towering fame, massive following, and media presence, isn't a shield. They wish she was. If anything, she's a spotlight. And right now, that spotlight is exposing cracks in Indiana's foundation. Let's not forget, Clark's competitiveness is legendary. This isn't a player who takes days off lightly. And yet here she was, benched during one of the most high-profile games of the season against the Phoenix Mercury. A game dripping with backstory and drama. DeWanna Bonner, the very player who exited Indiana under ugly circumstances, was returning with vengeance in her eyes. If there was ever a time for Clark to be on the court, this was it. But instead, silence, absence, and a tidal wave of questions. Stephanie White, once hailed as a player's coach, stood before the media trying to piece together a narrative that simply wouldn't stick. She talked about outside noise, about locker room privacy, about protecting players. But every word felt like a dodge. Every sentence only raised more suspicions. Fans could feel it. Something was wrong, not just with Clark's playing status, but with the entire vibe coming out of Indiana. Her words weren't reassuring. They were eerie. They felt like a coach under pressure, trying to stop a leak with duct tape and a forced smile. The fans weren't fooled. The comment sections exploded. One YouTuber said what everyone else was thinking: this is spooky. When a coach has to assure people that everything is fine, it usually means everything isn't. The Fever had this game circled. Everyone knew it was personal, and Clark missing it? That was a statement in itself. Whether the decision came from White, the front office, or higher up, it felt intentional. It felt like a move to keep Clark out of the crossfire, or worse, to silence her. And then came the moment that flipped the whole situation on its head. Stephanie White publicly praised DeWanna Bonner. Yes, Bonner, the same player who left the Fever in a blaze of controversy. Suddenly, White was calling her a great fit and comfortable in Phoenix. The fans? Stunned. It was like praising the villain in the middle of your own franchise's chaos. At a time when your rookie star is missing, your locker room is in turmoil, and the media is circling like sharks. This is the moment you shower praise on the enemy? That moment shattered any illusion of control. People began to wonder aloud, whose side is Stephanie White even on? If the coach is more vocal about an ex-player than her own superstar rookie, what message does that send to the team? To the fans? To Clark herself? It was a kind of bizarre PR move that made people start using phrases like clown show and circus to describe the franchise. The Fever weren't just losing games anymore. They were losing the narrative. Sports analysts, typically measured and cautious, finally snapped. This wasn't just mismanagement. It was hypocrisy. Earlier in the season, the Fever threw Clark back into the lineup after an injury with zero ramp-up, no rehab, no conditioning, just a cold return to high-stakes gameplay. But now, suddenly, they're preaching patience and recovery rhythm. It reeked of contradiction. The team wanted fans to believe Clark needed a NASA-level training protocol, but only after a viral clip proved she was healthy enough to kick like Mia Hamm. That contradiction became the league's Achilles heel. If Clark was good to go before without any ramp-up, why is she now being held back like a fragile antique? The inconsistency broke trust, and that's a dangerous thing to lose, especially when it comes to a player like Caitlin Clark. And the more time passed, the more it looked like this wasn't about her leg. It was about leverage. Someone was trying to control when, how, and why she returns. And fans? They weren't having it. More viral posts, more hashtags, more angry tweets. Clark being held out while smiling courtside, travel with the team, giving press smiles. Everything felt orchestrated. Fans began whispering, is she being monitored? If she's too injured to play, why is she being trotted out for every camera shot? Why not rest in private? The Fever might think they're showing transparency, but to fans, it looked like a PR stunt. And that raised even darker questions. What is the team really hiding? This wasn't just injury protocol. It was smoke and mirrors, a manipulation of narrative so convoluted. It began to feel like a scandal from a political drama. Cryptic coaches, confusing schedules, emotional deflections. And through it all, Caitlin Clark, the most recognizable player in women's basketball, sat silent, not once pushing back, not once speaking up. And that silence, it screamed, louder than any press release. Louder than any ESPN segment. Her absence was a statement, and as that silence grew louder, the pressure cooker in Indiana began to whistle. Every passing day without answers only intensified the storm. Headlines morphed from questions into accusations. Was this about protecting a rookie's health, or protecting the franchise from an internal implosion? Fans could feel the tension, like an electric current running through every social media post, every cryptic team update, every carefully crafted soundbite from the Fever's front office. Caitlin Clark wasn't just absent from the court. She was at the center of a growing mystery that no one seemed willing to solve. The timing of all this chaos couldn't have been worse. The WNBA is in the midst of its biggest surge in popularity in years, with Caitlin Clark as its undeniable lightning rod. Her presence draws record ratings. Her absence? It leaves a gaping hole, and fans don't just notice, they revolt. Questions like where's Caitlin and what are they hiding have become rallying cries. The Fever's vague responses, peppered with phrases like we're taking it day by day or We're protecting our player. Only sound hollow when fans can see Clark moving freely and smiling courtside. This disconnect between what's being shown and what's being said has created a perfect storm of distrust. It's not just Indiana Fever fans who are furious. It's everyone. From casual viewers to die-hard WNBA supporters, people are demanding clarity. And when clarity doesn't come, speculation fills the void. Suddenly, whispers of locker room tension and management conflicts aren't just fringe theories, they're the main storyline. And in the core of public opinion, silence is guilt. The soccer ball clip, while just seconds of footage, became the symbol of this entire controversy. It was the moment fans decided they weren't being told the full story. If Clark can kick a ball with that much power, what's stopping her from shooting a three-pointer? Is this about her safety or someone's ego? Every slow-motion replay of that clip added fuel to the fire. It was proof, in the eyes of many, that this wasn't an injury saga anymore. This was a control saga. And then, almost as if to double down on confusion, Stephanie White's demeanor in her next press conference was even more unsettling. Her body language was tight, her words clipped, her tone defensive. When asked about Clark's status, she talked in circles, deflecting, repeating the same vague lines. It wasn't the voice of a confident leader managing a straightforward injury recovery. It was the voice of someone trying not to slip up, as if the truth might spill out at any moment if she wasn't careful. This is where the drama escalates into something bigger than basketball. The Indiana Fever are no longer just a team, they're a headline factory. And every headline screams dysfunction. You can feel the unease radiating from every corner of this franchise. The fans feel it, the media feels it, and even other players around the league are starting to comment. This isn't normal. Not for a star like Caitlin Clark. Not for a player who was brought in to elevate the franchise, not become its biggest controversy. The real question now isn't just, will Caitlin Clark play again? It's what is really happening behind closed doors. Because if the Fever's plan was to quietly manage the situation and hope the noise died down, that plan has already failed. The noise isn't dying, it's multiplying. Every day she sits out adds another layer of suspicion. Every vague answer adds another log to fire. And fans? They're not letting this go. As the saga unfolds, it's becoming clear that the longer the Fever try to control the narrative, the more the narrative spins out of control. Caitlin Clark's silence, intentional or not, has become the loudest voice in the room, and that silence is forcing everyone to ask the hard questions. What's the real reason she's not playing? Is it a battle of power between coach and player? A front office decision gone wrong? Or something even messier? One thing is certain, this isn't just about one player sitting out. This is about the trust between a franchise and its fans. It's about the league's responsibility to its brightest star. And it's about the truth, whatever it is, finally coming to light. Because sooner or later, this silence will break. And when it does, the fallout could shake the WNBA to its core. Now, let's talk about the exit rumors. Because at this point, this isn't just about missing games. It's about legacy. Clark didn't come to the WNBA to be a pawn in internal politics. She came to compete. And if the Fever are failing to protect, support, or even listen to her, how long before she walks away from the chaos? Fans are already speculating. Is Caitlin Clark planning her exit? Will she push for a trade? Could she go overseas for a season just to escape this circus? The trust is broken. The storylines are imploding. And the league's brightest star is stuck in the middle of a storm that just won't end. Every move, every quote, every second Clark spends off the court deepens a mystery. And while the Fever hope the questions will fade, they won't. Because fans don't forget. Not when it's Caitlin Clark. Not when the pressers don't match the footage. Not when the truth feels like it's being buried beneath carefully scripted lies. At this point, it's no longer just a WNBA story. It's a cultural one. This is about accountability, transparency, and how a league handles its biggest superstar in decades. The press conferences may continue. The vague answers may persist. But until Caitlin Clark speaks or takes the court again, the silence will only grow louder. And if you're listening close enough, it already sounds like a roar.